Your rig is where you work, where you rock out. Your rig is your livelihood. So when that DPF light comes on, give your rig the respect it deserves. As for Road Warrior, stronger seals, better manufacturing, and it's made of metal that lasts. Less downtime and more miles on the road so you can haul longer. Respect the rig. Become a Road Warrior.
Welcome to The Long Haul, the podcast dedicated to empowering small carriers and owner-operators to drive their business forward. I'm your host, Adam Wingfield, bringing you insights from industry leaders, real-world success stories, and strategies to help you navigate the road to profitability. Whether you're just getting started or looking to take your fleet to the next level, this is the show where trucking meets opportunity. So buckle up, it's time to go the distance. Welcome back to The Long Haul, where we break the business down behind the wheel. Now, let me ask you this. How many of y'all out there are still tracking fuel receipts in a shoebox and reconciling your numbers maybe 3 months later? The reason why I asked is because today's guest gets it. He built a platform specifically for owner-operators and small fleets who need automation without giving up control. He isn't just some tech guy pitching some type of vaporware. He's been in the industry, understands the grind, and he's built a platform that helps carriers stay ahead of the paperwork, the tax man, and the stress without hiring an entire office team. If you've been on the fence about automation or that two-letter word AI, this conversation will take the mystery out of it and maybe even give you a few hours back of sleep in the process. But before we get rolling, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe wherever you're listening to, and head over to freightwaves.com/playbooks to subscribe to our newsletter. It's where we break down this kind of stuff every single week for carriers who want to grow smart and want to grow the right way. Without further ado, I want to bring to the platform the man that I can officially say, and I've said it to his face before, he was talking about AI long before AI became popular. And he created a platform made the name of Duke.AI that has recently had the opportunity to receive an investment from Eagle Venture Lab as well, with the great work that they're doing. Without further ado, Mr. Marcus Cooksey with Duke.AI. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Hey, Adam. Hey, thank you for the intro. You spot on and said some kind words that I never really thought about, and I appreciate the credit you've given. And when you look at everything you're doing, Adam, to help the small carriers and to be successful, what we do is just a small part of it. I always tell people it's critical, right? Operations is vital, making sure that you can get those direct relationships with shippers, but at the same time, understanding your numbers, also, and without a lot of cost, and making it easy so you can make strategic decisions around your trucking operations is vital. And I come from a person who owned a fleet of trucks, right? So I am an egghead techie person, right? But I've got roots in trucks going way back to UPS, and came back again and started my own fleet of trucks, have family members in it. And so it's actually been a calling, I feel, to me. And then to be connected with what you're doing, I think it's a full circle moment to bring, numbers and financial clarity. And I'll tell you some scenarios we've seen with carriers, good and bad. Yeah. And we just want carriers to be successful and know their numbers
at the end of the day. And that's what it's all about, right? That's what we truly want to get to the bottom is how can we make it better for the owner operators that are out there and the small carriers that are out there that are comprising, and we can just say what it is. The small carrier comprises the majority of the capacity in the industry. Right. They're the ones that truly move the industry forward. So before we get into Duke.AI, and you talked about it, you hit on the UPS journey, you hit on the small fleet side. Take us back. How did you get from automotive engineering to building tech for small carriers?
So I was working at a large company, Texas Instruments, for some years, and I was working on self-driving cars at that time. And I was traveling to Asia and trying to build our business there in Asia. But along the way, I also wanted to basically protect myself, right? You never know what happens in big corporations, layoffs and so forth. So I wanted to hedge my economic future by investing. So at that time, I invested in real estate. I had stock options. But then someone said, you need to open a business. And so I thought trucking would be, you know, it would be protected from whatever was going on in the economy. It would always be here. Of course, we're going through a three-year lag now, but still, you're going to need trucking. And so I went into trucking. I had family in trucking. I knew about trucking because of my background. And so what I did was I wasn't trying to start an AI company in freight. I was just actually trying to grow a strong trucking business. And I was able to do that. The problem I was having is I needed to get SBA loan. And in order to qualify for the SBA loan, Adam, I had to come up with all types of financial documents. I needed to do projections of how many employees I would hire and all those types of things. And I was doing it a little bit using, the tools at that time. But as we tried to grow our fleet, it was becoming almost impossible for us to do this because we had fewer receipts, we had payroll, we had insurance, we had all those things. And I remember, making a lot of money, but then we spent 1,800 to have an engine, 18,000 to have an engine rebuilt. And I was trying to figure out, all right, were we profitable? We're making money. And so I needed a way to do this in a simple way. And so I started becoming my own, I would say, experimental agent by developing AI for myself so I can understand my profit and loss.
The thing is, this cannot be taken lightly. You were talking about AI a long time ago. And when I say a long time ago, since I've known you, I would say probably at least 5 or 6 years ago. When you were talking AI, that wasn't common language for everybody. He was like, yeah, it'd be like, hey, I'm with Duke.AI. Okay, all right, whatever. AI is whatever. It's like at that point, you're like, okay, what is AI? Like, really? Like, you can honestly sit here and say that you were at the forefront of an emerging technology, but some of that came from your experience in,
Yeah.
hey, this self-driving cars thing is real.
Yeah.
I see it coming, but then you were able to say, hey, let me make sure I future-proof myself at the same time.
Yeah. No, you hit it. And so when I say future proof, I'll be honest, I didn't think self-driving cars, I thought it was, 7 years ago, I thought it was like 10 to 15 years off. And I said, well, why solve a problem that's so far away? But here we are. We see self-driving cars on the road, but we still are a ways away.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is that I said, I've got this problem in my own business. And I have the skills to understand how to develop foundational models around data to then create something I thought would be a lot less complex, but have more value immediately and be able to have a real short-term growth opportunity. And so I really turned away from kind of focus on, I've been out of self-driving cars now for almost, 7 years, but I have loved the problem we're solving at Duke.
Mm-hmm. Now let me say this, and obviously this is gonna come up. You work with self-driving cars. You was like, yeah, about that time, we about 15 years out. You know what I'm getting ready to ask. You know what's coming. What we talking about on the self-driving trucks? What is your thoughts on that? What do you see as far as a timeline where you can say, hey, you know what? Yeah, this is the norm.
Well, I travel between Dallas and Houston quite often, and I see the little. I won't mention the name of the company, but I see a driver with with their lidars, with the scrolling around, panning, and I would say it's coming. All right, it's here. I don't believe we will see driverless trucks as like pervasive everywhere. I do believe, and you and I know, safety is a huge concern. We just had an accident here in Dallas not too long ago where driver fell asleep behind the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I believe what the first phases we'll see in self-driving cars are the computer modules able to avoid those types of disasters, being able to recognize in advance that this driver is tired and begin to do the proper maneuvering.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're going to start, and that's called advanced driver assist.
Mm-hmm.
Then, in certain cases, what I'll say, because no one wants that litigation of a truck. It's one thing when you have a human and you can actually point the blame at the human. But now, when you start talking about a self-driving car, you got the truck, you got the radar, and everyone's saying it's his fault. It's the radar's part. It's the mechanical part. What you'll probably see is that on stretches of road, that driver will be able to prolong his hours of service by going into the back of the cabin, taking a nap for about 5 hours until he's somewhere where he needs to take over. And in this way, Adam, you and I know this: if that asset can move
That's true.
24 hours,
Yeah.
you're talking about more money in our pockets. I believe, and I'm talking like I'm still a carrier, but that's how I will be thinking as a carrier. So then I would think, okay, I need to invest in this because I potentially, and then be lobbying for now hours of services to factor in our service laws to factor in that we have this computer automation and that the fatigue of the driver is not as high because he can take a rest. So now you have an asset that actually move almost unstoppable just to fill up for gas. It doesn't stop, and now it's making more money.
I think that's a great point, but too, and also, you mentioned, how could we get there, and maybe it's in phases. But I think overall, just not just getting there from a technology standpoint. Because to your point, technology is already here. We've got infrastructure opportunities that we could say that probably is an issue. We've got state to state regulations that require a little bit of red tape. But I think ultimately, the thing that's going to get us there either faster or it's going to prolong it is the motor and public sentiment and how me as a person, how I feel going beside a truck that doesn't have a driver and I look up and there's no driver in there. How does that make me feel? And that's going to determine how people vote, and how people vote is really going to determine to determine where we go with the technology. So you spent
Good point.
time
Good point.
around freight and tech. You had the opportunity to spend some good time around freight and tech, especially on the freight side. And then even on the tech side, like, some of the things is, when you go into the self-driving cars and you talk about the different stages and phases of full self-driving and the type of technology, a lot of it is predictive. A lot of it's
Hmm.
artificially predictive. You're predicting, hey, this LiDAR can see, 400 football, 400 yards away, and it's predicting what potentially can
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
What do you see as the biggest disconnect between freight right now and tech solutions with everything that you have available, like tech wise?
Man, that is a loaded question. Great question, because I believe that the two parties have not united just yet. I use you for example, and I was telling somebody Adam knows trucking like anybody that I know. You know everything from operations. I've even heard you talk about mechanics, parts. You've talked about driver pay, factoring, getting everything set up. So you can't really take a technology person and put 20 something years of their knowledge into a product that is going to serve a community. However, the same is true for a person who may have a technology, who has a freight
That's
background,
right.
and you're talking about models and your data and all of this. You can't take that person and then substitute him for a person who's has a PhD, spent years of that. And what hadn't happened, and I see it on two sides. You see people who come in through Y Combinator, they've got a tech background, business degree, Yale, they've got all the checks off from a technical point of view, but they don't have the freight background, and so they don't. And so while they're trying to work with other freight companies, they just don't have that DNA. There's some
Yeah.
DNA parts that comes with it as well. Same thing with me as a technologist, as DNA. Only reason why I was able to really have a successful truck company because I had people with trucking DNA as my advisors to grow.
Hmm.
So what will be needed, absolutely needed, is will you truck freight will need to recruit the same engineers that Facebook, Meta are recruiting, right? And likewise, these individuals will act as advisors, project managers, directing them in some kind of way. But we need to bridge the two knowledge, the two knowledge parties together across tech and freight to build products. I just so happen to get lucky that I have both of them ingrained into me to build the product. But in order for us to solve the many problems, we've got to bridge those two together.
And the crazy thing is that you're in a great place because one of the things that I know from the experience that I've been in the industry that the industry suffers from is adaptation lag when it comes down to technology. Great example. We're still signing BOLs today with an ink pen when we're delivering and picking up freight. Like, I'm like, are we still doing that? Right? Is that you still have to submit four corners of a BOL for to get paid on the load that you delivered. And God forbid it's got like 10 pages and you're missing a page and you're not going to get paid for it. We are at that point as a society. So when I look at the problem itself, what are some, from your opinion, what are some of the biggest back office pain points that you see, like just small carriers struggling with, not just the back office stuff? What do you see that at?
So I'll give an example of a carrier. They signed on to Duke last year. Not last year, last week. Actually, this is two, but I'm gonna give you the first one that was like 3 weeks ago. They have a 10 truck operation. And you say, oh, they're doing great. But it was like a person who had never been on a scale
Hmm.
once they connected to Duke. They knew something was off, but they had never seen their numbers. Now they're doing almost $2 million at the date that they signed on. And they knew they were doing about 2 million, but they didn't understand where all the money was going. And as they connected to Duke, I saw the wife first say, wow, man, we're still spending a lot of money on payroll. We're spending a lot of money on leases. And so the husband looked over, he was doing something and he saw it. He's like, oh my God, we've got to make some changes. And so I started talking to him about depreciation. That is how I grew my truck, is through asset
Yeah.
depreciation. Well, he said, I don't believe in that because I lease all my trucks. And I said, oh my goodness,
Mm,
you're losing out
mm.
on a huge tax break. And then Donald Trump has just came out with a new tax break. You're missing out. There's no going back against it because they've already started their operations. They can survive, but they're missing out on a huge tax break. So that's one example of what I've seen where, but that all starts at the beginning, like you always preach. The beginning, how you start your trucking business, the assets, I've heard you say that many times, how you start your trucking business, the assets will determine whether or not you're going to be
That's
successful.
right. That's right. That's right. Now, when you think about that, and unfortunately, a lot of people that do get into business, they don't truly understand, all of the intricacies out there. And the good thing about artificial intelligence is that artificial intelligence has provided speed to knowledge, in my opinion, when it comes down to
Yeah.
that. If it hasn't done anything, it has provided an accelerated platform to information. So
Mhm.
when most people hear AI and they think overkill, how do you explain what you do with Duke AI, what Duke AI does in a way that connects with a one truck, a two truck, a three truck operation?
Yeah. What we try to help them to see is the simplicity, though, because there's a when you talk about accounting, people immediately turn off. They shut off. And I don't care if it's a well-known accounting software platform, there is a barrier that happens. And and so what we have to do is actually help them to understand simplicity, right? They don't understand that what we're presenting to them through Duke AI is going to do exactly what you said, Adam, is going to create a short turnaround time of your knowledge without you having to know what a chart of account is,
Mhm.
without you needing to know how to, let's say, organize and categorize certain transactions. In their mind, that's what we have to overcome. And so we find ourselves doing more education around what you're saying, is that there is going to be a shorter knowledge that you have to get to understand your finances. And that has been one of our biggest challenges. Fortunately, ChatGPT has helped. So now people embrace AI. So it doesn't look like something that's just this futuristic thing that only a few people have access to. But we're still, proselytizing, them want to use that word like that, but we're
Yeah.
still kind of evangelizing the simplicity that you just spoke of.
The crazy thing is that when we go back, I go back to 1920 when I met you, you are already, OCR technology, hey, we're scanning uploads, reading documents. And I mean, it was like, okay, this is cool, but is this the future? And now we're in the future and like, dang, this was the prophecy back then. Like, hey, you already on there. So with that being said, what's something that people get totally wrong about AI when it comes down to trucking?
uh, I believe that people have one of them. They've kind of been skeptical. Part of it is like, oh, AI can't do X, Y, and Z. It can't do finances. In fact, we've had accounting because we've actually wanted to partner with accounting firms,
Mhm.
and they all said, well, AI can't do what I've done, and I've been doing this for 25 years. I get it. because so part of that is protectionism, right? You've been doing this for 25 years, you've been charging a certain amount, and now someone's going to come and charge you, undercut you, 10x, right? So there's a part of you that wants to resist that change. However, we're seeing our AI Duke because as you mentioned, we've got like an 8-year head start on data. And what that means is that our AI is able to learn, right? And so we built in systems in place that makes that training on the fly and learning. And so it's amazing when we see customers come on first time and it's categorized everything and it's generating reports and some of the new features we're adding that allows you to chat with Duke and ask you specific things. That is that comes from having that head start, but helping our customers understand that these tools are available to you. But we also have to also have to tell our customers this: AI is not perfect. It's not perfect,
That's
and I'll tell you, it's not perfect. We had a client that onboarded. They were frustrated. They were like, "Hey, do categorize these as unknown." Now that may sound like a bug, but what you don't want to do in AI is what's called hallucination, because hallucination occurs when AI tries to know it all and it gives you an answer it really doesn't know. And it's trying to speculate on what the conclusion is. And we have to tell her that if our AI would have drawn a conclusion incorrectly and placed it in a bin that was not correct, it would have been so difficult for you and I for us to sift through that and find the errors. So what we try to do is like more of a statistical model that says, okay, if we don't know, let's put it somewhere that someone else can come in and train, not our customers, but internally in our organization to train. And then that will actually help future customers whenever certain things come through. So we have to let them know that it's not perfect. And we've put provisions in that may not give you the result you want immediately, but over long term, you're going to have an accurate report.
So when we talk about real use cases, and we want to talk about a real use case, but for those that don't know, a 1 sentence, 2 sentence description of what is Duke AI.
Well, the name stands for Developmental Understanding of Known Examples Using Artificial Intelligence. That is just what it is. So we take known examples of documents, we develop the understanding, and really in terms of the product, we basically have 3 different products. Our first product we came out, and when we first met you, Adam, that was all around bookkeeping for trucking business, where we would take pictures of receipts, capture that, store it, and then extract data and categorize it. We've gone a little further since then. We still capture receipts, but we connect directly to the business bank accounts of trucking companies. So you can connect up to 30 different accounts. Duke will pull those transactions in on a daily basis, categorize it, and generate profit and loss expense reports for you to get a detailed breakdown of where your expenses are. We actually, and you're big on this, the break-even calculator. So Adam is always talking about knowing your break-even point. You inspired us in terms of trying to put some stuff together around helping clients based on their own expenses because it's different. As you know,
Absolutely.
one trucking's rate per mile is different from another's rate per mile, and you just can't go with you probably understand this more than I do. So what we try to do is give you a general, break-even point based on your own expenses. And so that's kind of the I would say foundational, without going into detail of some of our other products we have. But at our core foundation, we believe every carrier should be using Duke or something like Duke for their finances.
Today's episode is brought to you by Trucking Hub. Now listen, if you're still bouncing between 5 different logins just to run your trucking business, you're already behind. Trucking Hub is built by a carrier for carriers, and it puts everything under one roof, whether it be dispatch, safety, maintenance, and even accountant and a driver app. Their dispatch runs on PC Miler and Copilot navigation, so the miles are right the first time. Now, the ELD is FMCSA certified, Tampa proof, and trusted since 2017. And if you want to keep it all in one lane, you can even roll in company phones, text, and video, and fax backed by nationwide LTE. Bottom line, this is the kind of system that's you spend less time hopping and more time hauling. Plans start at just $29 per truck, no contract, no hidden fees, and you can try it for free for 30 days. Check them out at their website and get your time back. So how are small carriers actually using Duke AI today versus the way that they were using them 5 years ago?
5 years ago, they were taking pictures and uploading. They were taking pictures of settlement statements. They were emailing documents to Duke. And then before that, they were actually using what I call general purpose accounting solutions. So general purpose accounting solutions, will be your QuickBooks. The problem they were having, like with that, and I know this personally, is that you need to take classes to understand how to use those types of platforms, or you would pay someone else to do it. And a lot of your trucking companies were paying $250 a month on top of everything they were paying for in order to have their books done. But what we learned is 90% of trucking companies were neglected, but they just weren't doing it. So you had those three categories of trucking companies. What carriers are doing now, small carriers are doing now, is that they simply just connect Duke to their business bank account, and they're done.
And it handles all
It
the
takes
bookkeeping.
that's it. It does everything for you. Once you connect at one time, we send out a report every week. Duke will send out a report every week saying, hey, these are your costs, these are your income, here are your expenses. And then every now and then we'll let people know, we add analytics to say, hey, this particular expense has increased more this month than it was previous month. Like, we provide those analytics, but it's a much more powerful platform than it was 5 years ago, much more simple to use. And we've added invoicing as well. So that's another product that on the broker side. But as far as the carriers, that's the main usage. Now we have a few carriers that are using these are your larger carriers that are using our automated invoicing. As you mentioned, the BOL and having all corners on the BOL. Duke will actually generate invoices based on having certain documentation, rejecting invoices if all the corners aren't there, a few other things to make the invoicing process streamlined for it. These are more larger carriers that are using that particular product.
So what's one feature or use case that saves people the most time and money right out of the gate?
It's the bookkeeping. That one is the one that saves more money, because for $10 a month, that's our basic platform, our basic feature. A carrier can connect to Duke and really get a grasp of their books and their financial. Right now, if you want to go one step further with a human in the loop, and that's another aspect of AI, it helps, and we recommend for the guided human in the loop. So that means we have a person on our team that would actually work with you to help categorize certain things, because, like we mentioned, there are some limitations of AI. But even then, that's $65 a month for your books to be totally done for you automatically. And so that's probably what I would call like the easiest, quick shot benefit to carriers.
Now, when you look at you got bookkeeping down pat, which honestly typically is one of the largest pain point for a lot of carriers, especially when it comes down to IFTA, when it comes down to the end of the year. Like, that's where the scramble time comes.
Yep.
The solution that you have and created, it specifically targets the biggest problem when it comes down to financial. I don't want to say acumen without being fair, but it is financial acumen when it comes down to having things together. Yeah, that is just profound, especially when you merge technology with it to where you have technology solutions behind that. How would you communicate to the small carrier audience who may have been skeptical with connecting bank accounts to this and artificial intelligence knowing bank accounts and what how would you take, because that the small carrier community is very, very, very niche, very small, very, very,
Yeah.
very, it's a very, very tough community to gain that trust. How would you help decipher that?
The first thing that pops up is security, right? If I connect this AI tool, is it going to start pulling money out of my bank account? That's the first thing I would ask, right?
Absolutely.
You've got to give access to, and not trying to brag, but we haven't been breached in 8 years. So that lets you know that we put a lot of pride and protection. In fact, we had a customer the other day. We reject their architecture integration with us just because what they were required us to do some things that would add vulnerability. And so by my team, my co-founder and I. So you see me, but I have a co-founder as well. Security is the first thing that we focus on. So that trust between Duke and connecting to your business bank account. We connect over 8,000 banks. Uh, so you can be assured that your information is going to be safe when we pull those transactions. We're transparent in terms of the visibility we give clients. We have a mobile app and we have a web app. And that gives you what I would call access all the time. So it's not like you've got to call us and say, give me my report. You have access to that all the time. And in fact, I tell people you should be using this on a daily basis. I want you addicted to looking at your numbers and understanding what's going on, looking for that fraud. I remember, Adam, I had drivers stealing fuel from me, right? And I didn't catch it until a little later on after after they had left,
Yeah,
right? But it's one of those things if you're looking at your books on a 6-month cycle, you can't catch that stuff,
that's right.
right? Um, and so that's those are the two things that I want to share them. And then the second part of it is people still like a human touch.
Hmm.
And that's why we offer the other service where there's a human involved, because our owner operators get so busy. And in fact, we work with a lot of tax professionals, because just like you said, we make the tax prep a lot easier. And one of the things they complain about is like, your customers, they don't follow up with us. And I'm like, they're busy.
Yeah,
They're on the road.
yeah.
They're moving. And so having that human touch, who's going to cycle back, hey, how you doing? Catch up, it's important, because given the lifestyle of owner operators and their business, that human touch, I always advise them to go ahead and use that service, because that's what you get, is that continual follow up.
And that's the human touch is one of the things that really turns some people against artificial intelligence, because you got a lot. And I think it's just sometimes it's an acceleration kind of just theory that people want to jump on the latest tech and take it as far as they can first. So I look at the outbound sales calls and outbound sales agents, and then you look at it and you're like, man, that's not natural, man. We're not there yet. It's like we're like, pump our brakes on. Let's slow down first. Let's get the basic stuff. But you can't, I'm not going to fault aspiration. But then you got to look at certain industries, and I can tell you the freight industry is one of the industries that I've seen that there's some brokerages just trying to do it. There's some brokerages that are out there trying to do it. They're trying to get AI to where the AI is the one that's answering the calls. And then there's dispatch software that's out there now today that are being the dispatcher that's calling the broker. So what are your thoughts on how that on some of that?
Oh, I liken this part of AI and freight to the passenger vehicle in 1908, right? It's one of those things that, it's not that primitive, but it's like, oh, we have a car. And
Yeah.
everybody's excited about a vehicle until it's a cold snow day, and then you got to crank it up to start. And then someone says, oh, we need an automatic starter.
Yeah.
Then later on, people are driving. There's like, oh, we need more roads. And they build more roads. Oh, people are dying on these roads. We need seatbelts. People are still dying. We need airbags. And so
Yeah.
I think we're going to go through these cycles. And unfortunately, some of the people who are building the technology may not be the manufacturers of the product. And that's where the problem comes, because the only thing they can do at that moment is, let's say, for instance, you're creating a interactive voice response AI bot that is interacting with, customers. Well,
Mhm.
you've got to train that model for thousands of different vocal variations, different scenarios. And if you are not in control of training that bot, right, because you can buy some of these things. We don't use all AI. We actually buy certain AI and we use it for various things. And when something's break, we have to call them. And so if you're at the mercy of the production person, then you're like the person who's driving that car, and you're complaining that people are dying, but you're waiting on someone to solve it. So I always tell people who are doing this, you've got to love solving problems versus the outcomes. And I think what we're seeing right now is people that jump into outcomes and they don't have that real innate desire to really solve the problem for the outcome we want to see in the future.
Where do you see AI 3 years, 5 years from now? You've seen it from, because your reputation with AI now has preceded yourself through that. if you were to like to just put a crystal ball out and you're like, you know what, AI is going to be able to do this in about 3 to 5 years, what would be those things that you would say that's able to do?
I'm impressed with where AI is today. Being an engineer, I use AI to write code for me. Now, it doesn't write it for me, the whole product, but it gives me the outline and template. I actually help it to polish my emails and various things. And so it is going to allow, what it's doing for us today is allow us, like you mentioned this, is to gain access to knowledge and refine and polish things in a much faster way. It's increasing productivity. And I don't think that's going to go away. And I feel like it's just going to accelerate over the next 5 years. Um, what we will see, and everybody's talking about these agents, right? And that's huge. I think what we'll start seeing though is a pushback because all this stuff costs. Adam, I know how much I spend on cloud servers and all this type of stuff, and right now it just seems free. Somebody's got to pay for this
Somebody
stuff.
gonna pay for it. Yeah.
Somebody's got to pay for this. And I don't know who's going to pay for it and how it's going to come out, but someone's going to have to pay for it. And so you're probably going to start seeing more people, prices going up, more subscriptions going up because all these companies are getting these $1 billion cash infusions and so forth. But you got to make money, and so what that will mean is that if you are dependent on one of these open models, you will be paying in about another 3 years. And so you will need to factor that into your cost structure as you're providing your products in the future. Now, in terms of capabilities, Adam, I can't tell you the limits because we're going to see some things that we thought were limits, especially around robotics, self-driving cars, and we're going to say, I didn't think they would ever come. So I can't put limits on what we can do because if you give us enough time, enough technology, I think there's almost impossible things we can do. But at the end, it's all going to come at a cost. And so, and that cost will be failed businesses. I'm not saying that, because I know how much we spend. It's a lot and you got to recoup it some kind of way. So I don't know if that helps answer your question,
Yeah.
but those are some of the things that I see coming in the next 3 years.
Do you think, and this is a little bit off topic, but not really. Do you think artificial intelligence is going to compromise human intellect? And what I mean by that is that you can't lie. AIs make people lazy, man. I've seen, let me tell you, the worst thing that I've seen is and if you mess around with Chat GPT or Bard or Gemini enough, you know when you see somebody's responding. And you also know the person and be like, yeah, you don't
Yeah,
talk like that. I'm
yeah,
seeing people
yeah,
respond to LinkedIn posts and like if you're going in a back and forth and instead of giving your real perspective, you use an AI to write your perspective. Do you think that is gonna impact human intelligence?
absolutely. But I tremendously, and you have to be careful because and I would advise anybody not to become, as you mentioned, lazy because there were two lawyers, right? You went to school, you became a lawyer, you know how to put the briefings together, but then you decide I'm going to use Chat GPT. Well, and it gives you a really nice briefing. The problem is that, and this is a real case, Adam, the case never exists and they presented it and they lost all their credibility, right? And so you have to decide if you get that dependent, right? There was a young kid just recently, committed suicide just because of some stuff he got from ChatGPT.
Mm.
So what is the cautionary? I think it's the same caution we see with social media and all those types of things. For some people, it is going to, deaden their creativity, all those things even more so. But Adam, I always say this too. For some people, it's going to be a great opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know a person like you, like us, it will be an opportunity to bridge between, what's real and what's not. Now, what that looks like, I try to be careful what that looks like and saying what that is. I've got ideas of my personal, from my personal vision, and I tell my family about it of where we're going. So it's more of a personal view, but we will find ourselves locked into, I don't want to use the word matrix, but you don't want to find yourself into that you just don't. And I'm just warning.
You right about that. You right about that. So
Yeah.
what's next for Duke AI, man? Any upcoming features or developments that we should be watching for?
Oh, great questions. Well, we're going to continue, adding more features to Duke, our bookkeeping platform. So in about a few months, we're doing some R&D, pretty promising R&D, where you will be able to chat with Duke. And so, cool thing about chatting with Duke is you're not chatting with Chat GPT. You're actually chatting with Duke. And certain things you'll be asking Duke is, specific things around your business, projections. If I continue on at this rate, what can I expect my profits to be in another 3 years? You may not like the answer.
Sure. Yeah. It's going to talk to you.
However, it's going to talk to you, right? And it's going to give you that real. But just like you said, Adam, we want you to use your wisdom, because ChatGPT is going to base that on what previous behaviors. But we can't predict who you are as a person and what your plans are. It's only predicting based on previous financial data. So I wouldn't. It's just a helpful guide. But it won't be something. It's just predictive. Another thing that we're starting to release are features for brokers. So we're seeing brokers having pain points around payments, them getting paid, and also accounts payable. So we're starting to see the first batch of brokers using Duke to automate invoicing for themselves and carriers. And what that looks like is, we call it zero touch. No need to download the app, because that's one of the problems. Our carriers still live in their inboxes. And we don't want to force them out. That was one of the mistakes we made. We tried to force people onto an app and a portal. They resisted that. Stay in your inbox. Let Duke live in there, and just like a human, it will actually take those documents, consolidate them together, reject them if it's not proper, and set up the payments in QuickBooks, Zoho, and then send out the invoice to your customer. So that's a really fun feature we're starting to see getting some traction on.
I'd love to see it grow. And as we kind of close out, a couple more questions. One, if you were mentoring a small carrier today, actually 2025 versus 2019, what advice would you give them about running their business like a business based on what you're seeing on the back end of Duke.AI?
I would say even if you know trucking. Right. One of the things I did is I started with people who knew trucking, but they weren't owner operators. So we did stuff like buying the wrong insurance type, getting the wrong fifth wheel for the type of loads we were hauling. Don't make those type of mistakes. You definitely need to get with a mentor, and it's worth it to pay for it. If you're getting into it, and you may not need to do it forever, but you need to be with a community of people who've done this before. I've interviewed truckers, and so one of the things successful trucking companies, and they say you need to know what you're doing. You can't know what you're doing if you've never done it before.
That's
So
right.
work with somebody like Adam who knows what he's doing.
That's right. That's right. And that's a great point, because also, obviously, what you don't know. But then also know, one of the biggest things too, and it'll surprise you, like even from a mentorship standpoint, it's not necessarily always the knowledge. It's the accountability
Mm,
and the support that
yeah,
really takes you further. Because
yeah,
again, like knowledge and information can be accessed, but
yeah,
application and accountability can't. And
yeah.
that's the thing
No,
that can't be replaced. But to your point, and that you mentioned it, I'm glad you mentioned the point. Hey, you know what? Make sure you know what you're doing. If you don't, find somebody that does. Get in a community that does, man. Don't go out here trying to
yeah.
wing it on your own.
No. And yeah, what saved us, we never got on load boards.
Yeah, yeah.
We never we started on low boards, but we got off them real quick. But the only way to do that is I'm not trying to brag on myself, but I felt like I understood business, and so I could talk with people and so forth. And I'm not knocking low boards either, but I'm just saying, get with somebody that can take you to the next step. The second thing I would say is, you're gonna need OPM, other people's money.
All day long. All day long, all day long. The moment you figure that out and take the pride out of your voice and just use somebody else's money to get where you need to go, then that's part of scale, right? And I think that
It is.
ultimately does it. And you're in the final stages of joining the NVIDIA Inception program, so congratulations on that. You expanded to
Thank
a
you.
platform agnostic model, enabling carriers and brokers payments across like QuickBooks, Zoho, factoring companies, and proprietary systems. So I think you're in the process of onboarding several carriers and brokers to that platform. So it sounds like you got
Yeah.
a lot going on. And then Love also, another one of the things, tell us about the community catch up bookkeeping for 2024, 2025. You got a little something for the community on that one.
Yeah, for your community, playbook community, we're saying tax season is now, not in January.
Yeah.
So you can catch up on your bookkeeping. Let's say, for instance, you haven't done your bookkeeping in 2024, 2025. We're gonna let Adam's community catch up with bookkeeping for $65.
Oh man.
Yeah. So for the first, not for everybody, Adam, for the first, for the first,
Okay. Let's make
for,
it
for,
clear.
for the, yeah,
500
yeah,
people, that's
yes.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, 500 people. That's it. We're gonna let you catch up with your bookkeeping, and but that's starting now. For the first 500, so that we can make your tax season a lot easier.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's huge, because I know some people that's got 200 pages of unreconciled books for the year so far. So I think $65 is well worth going through every single page of that to help self-rectify. So I really
How
appreciate
many
that.
you said, Adam? How
200
many?
pages, 200 pages. Like, you can sort it 25 to a page, 200 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes,
Yeah,
man.
wow. Well, we just had a carrier that had almost 4,000 transactions like last week.
Ooh, ooh.
$65 though, and he was like, "Wow, how
Hey,
you guys
man,
doing it?" That's the yeah. So yeah,
money well
but
spent.
we'll help your community. Yeah,
Well, we
yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. And this obviously won't be the last time we hear from you in the community. Before we leave out of here, how can people find information about Duke.AI? If they wanted to book a call with somebody on the team, how would they be able to do that?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me or my co-founder. Reach me first, because LinkedIn, Marcus Cooksey. Um, we want to do more in terms of education, and look for us at Duke.AI on Instagram. So we always share some educational content on Instagram, or email me directly. So people, you may have an idea about AI, and I love talking about certain things with people. So Marcus at Duke.AI. You can reach out to me. So I would say those are the three mediums that you can reach out to us.
And the one thing that I can tell you that is also something that I admire most about you as a founder is your connection with the people. You're like, nah, don't call my sales team. I want you to talk to me, and then let's have a conversation first. And having that ground floor
Yeah,
connection with the people is always going to be a key catalyst to your success. So definitely
yeah. Thank you.
thank you for that. So, big
Yeah,
thanks for Marcus for making the case that you don't need to be a tech expert to run a tight, efficient operation. So if you're still doing everything by hand, whether it's tracking loads, filing receipts, guessing at your margins, you're not saving money, you're bleeding it. Marcus and Duke AI are showing us how to reclaim that time with those dollars, one automated task at a time. And if this episode helped clear up around the mystery around AI, help us keep the conversation going, do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen. And don't forget to jump on our newsletter over at freightwavesplaybook.com for weekly tools, insights, and resources made for small carriers. This has been the long haul, where we give you more than just talk. We give you tactics. We catch you on up to date on everything you need to know. So I'll catch you on the next time. Thank you for joining us, and see you on the next show.